properly driven lap, and that's a checkered flag.
Plenty of people enjoying the sun and enjoying quite a lot of Formula One running after Julian talking us through what we thought was a masterclass. But it's nice to wander down memory lane, isn't it?
You can live it home, can't you? You can live it home. Can we dig up another?
Do you want to see Singapore?
Yeah, can we dig up Singapore safety car restart, lap 6 or 7 or something?
Yeah. Any specific moment you want to see?
Show me another.
We can review the career.
Have another highlight.
We've got another 54 minutes before someone else is coming in, so we can relive the glory days.
Enough of the old Palmer highlights.
Yeah,
these are the Palmer highlights. We're living them. We're living them now. Enough of that as well, though.
Right, movement down there at Red Bull, and heading out onto the circuit. Alex Albon, haven't seen a lot of him. Issue this morning with the cockpit, but that was almost admin, and now he's going to try and add to the 60 laps after a bit of time waiting. He's got Valtteri Bottas directly in front of him, and he has seen him staring at the steering wheel. To keep your tweets coming in to hashtag F1 Inbox. Someone said there was an apex in some of these corners for Palmer's lap. I'm not going to read the critical ones out. You were a good sport, Bob.
No, look, we've got to be fair. We've got to be fair, and the apexes were generally avoided. The track's changed. It got resurfaced. Maybe it was slightly quicker around the middle of the road and some of them back there.
Alex says, can you compare that 2017 Jolyon lap with the 2020 Renault lap? Listen, we're just making work for ourselves here, but that is very, very good to wander back. And Leon's asked, are there any good dishes being served at the Barcelona tests? As a commentator, surely you get great food. I have to say, the food's been terrific this week. Hence the large lunch. You been a fan?
Yeah, actually, second to none. And you can enjoy the food when you're a commentator compared to when you're a driver. Probably a vegan dish I had for lunch.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. Right, we've got another change in the commentary box now. Delighted to be joined by Ted Kravitz. Had a few minutes with you yesterday, Ted. It's great to see you back up here. Feeling more comfortable in the commentary box. Not a fish out of water situation. You did loads of years in the commentary box, didn't you? When
Hello,
you were working
Alex.
for another...
Hello, JP again.
Another broadcaster?
Well, never commentating. I was the...
What was your role back then?
I was the helper in the ITV days between 97 and 01 for Murray Walker and Martin Brundle. Murray, the Don, the Master, the Supremo. You see, the always told me to commentate on what was going on screen. So there we go.
There we go. We might give that a go. We might give that a go for the next hour.
I've just been strolling the paddock up and down. It's extremely bright when you go from Mercedes down to McLaren, and then nicely backlit when you go from the other way. But Hamilton, I mean, I've seldom seen Lewis Hamilton in a better mood. He came out, there's a gaggle of fans outside the Mercedes motor, and there was a kid who wanted a photo. Lewis obliged for photos with all of them. Of course, you know, he's doesn't always have the time to do that, but it just struck me, his mood in the press conference as well, buoyant, optimistic, happy with everything so far, and why shouldn't he? And I still keep thinking about what the narrative of this championship is going to be? Is it going to be a fight between Lewis and Bottas?
The spinning Valtteri Bottas.
The spinning Valtteri Bottas.
To use the Murray Walker rule, referring to what we're seeing on screen.
Are Red Bull going to get in there with something that we don't yet know, and maybe some speed that we haven't yet seen? What about Ferrari? We're going to see Sergio Perez winning a race. I mean, you were talking,
that would be incredible.
Were you talking about his longer runs pace just then? He did a series of 121s, I believe. I just checked.
Right.
Earlier on.
We were reliving the highlights of Jolin's career.
Oh, you were doing that, right? Okay. So you know, I just obviously Hamilton is in a good mood. He's got an amazing car, and if it can be as successful as it is innovative, then maybe it is. You know, the large sort of narrative of the season is going to be the fight between him and his teammate Valtteri Bottas. In which case, we should probably talk about Valtteri Bottas a bit as well. Don't know how much you've been covering him. How much have you been doing? Have you been following up on the press conference earlier with dual axis steering?
Yes, interesting comments coming out of the press conference, and the line that stayed with me was the FIA have known about it for a long time. So not saying, oh yeah, it's definitely legal, but throwing it the way of, well, they know about it, and they've had a while to tell us if it shouldn't be on the car.
Well, it hasn't been subject to the inquiring minds of the other teams yet. So Mercedes believe it's absolutely legal. The FIA seem to concur. Certainly all the engineers from the other teams I've spoken to think it's legal.
Yep.
But they haven't got into the legalities of the, you know, let's see if we can make it illegal. Let's see if we can find a loophole where we can get it banned. Never knows, there's precedent enough for that in Formula One. Of, you know, let's take it apart with some tweezers and see if we can get it banned, if it is worth too much. But that's the other thing we don't know about the DAS, or the dual axis steering. We don't know when it's going to be used. That was one of the things James Allison says. He says, I'm not going to divulge, you know, when we're going to use it or how much it's going to give us in terms of lap time, which is the answer we really want, the question we really want answered. But, you know, we're pleased that we've got it on the car. Seems to be usable, he said. We'll find out over the next few days how much lap time it brings us. But dual-axis steering rather gives us a clue as to what it does, doesn't it? So there's not just one axis moving the steering wheel in one direction. Obviously, there's that forward and back moment, and that changes the axis, the toe of the front wheels too.
So we saw Lewis using it in the heavy braking zones, or towards the heavy braking zones, so basically adjusting it on the straights earlier on. But we did see Valtteri Bottas using it on the way down to turn 7 earlier on. Don't know if that was deliberate or not.
No, if it's not, then
of the year in about half an hour's time. So we'll see what he says later this evening as dusk comes here to the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. So let's see what Sebastian has to say for himself. I'm sure he would have looked at the trombone steering wheel, the DAS on the Mercedes, and think, that's another thing they've got and we haven't.
But we don't know. Maybe there's something on there we don't know yet. Maybe he'll tell us that we need to look a little bit closer at their car.
Maybe. There's not that on it yet, but you can be sure there'll be lots of people in Maranello thinking,
busy working away right now.
Is this worth it? Is this worth it? Do we think this is worth it? And worth the money, worth the time, worth the investment? And if it is, how quickly can we get it to our car? Melbourne is what, March the 15th?
Yes.
And it's February the 20th today? I'd say it was a bit tight for Melbourne, but you never know.
Okay. Well, you've mentioned Mercedes and the trombone. You've been calling it the pink Mercedes. Explain. Tell us more about this Racing Point car that you've been calling the pink Mercedes. Here is the Mercedes.
Yeah, so this is last year's Mercedes W10. And if you look at the nose cone, you know, they're pretty similar. They've taken a heavy influence from there. But they've actually said, you know, Andy Green spoke to him today. He was saying, the chief designer, the technical director, rather, he was saying, look, we have taken cues from the Mercedes. Why not take the visual cues from the best car? Why not take them from the best car
Anybody can
in
do
the
it.
field? Anyone can do it, and there's nothing wrong with it. And they already have the gearbox, the engine, and the rear suspension from Mercedes. It's last year's Mercedes gearbox. That's bought in. They're allowed to do that. And as far as the aerodynamic surfaces of the car, that has to be Racing Point's own intellectual property, which it is. But it doesn't mean they can't copy other people's designs, especially when they're the Mercedes and they're winning the championship. So that's what they've done. and good luck to them.
And anybody can up and down the pit lane.
Well,
they don't have to be tied in with Mercedes to do. If you see something you think works on another car, you're going to try and do it, like the steering wheel we just talked about.
No, indeed, and there is technology transfer between a lot of the teams in the midfield. You know, we heard from Carlos Sainz that, you know, if they get to the first race, and the early promise of the Racing Point is that they see them a second ahead of McLaren. Then, as Sainz says, there's nothing we can do about that. But the reason I think I didn't ask Günther Steiner about it, of course, because Haas are very much in the same boat with Ferrari. Haas have a technical association with Ferrari. The engine, the gearbox, you know, is Ferrari. And that means that the rear suspension is largely, you know, similar to Ferrari. They buy other bits in, and they're allowed to buy in from Ferrari. So Haas won't be mentioning any kind of objections to what Racing Point are doing. It's just that we're seeing Racing Point very much as a Mercedes junior team.
OK, well, let's hear from them now, because Sergio Perez has just been speaking.
Checo, they're calling it a pink Mercedes. Does it drive like you imagine the Mercedes would drive?
I'll hope it will perform like their car, but I think it's still very early days. I think we have so many things to go through, a lot of work in our shoulder. All the team is working flat out. What is really good about this season is to finally have a car that is going to be very, very close to what we have in Melbourne. So that's a very positive thing. You know, we can focus and learn so much compared to other seasons where we were always late with our car. I think today we are on the right track, and definitely the car has potential. So hopefully we can start strong.
It's the first year in many you're not behind the 8 ball, but as Andrew Green said earlier today, it is a huge risk to make such a massive departure from what the team's used to this new design, even if it is ostensibly based on what the championship car of last year was.
Yeah, it is, you know, because you are used to after so many years you're used to kind of your design, and to change that dramatically, your car is changing quite a lot. The way it operates is very different, so it's a huge risk, but I think it's worth taking it.
Looks like you can't stop the corners of your mouth from turning up. There's a happiness in there. How good does it feel to drive? What's the balance like? Have you found any weak areas yet?
Yeah, obviously there are plenty of things that we gotta work on, you know. I think, as I've said, you know, we have a good base. I think it's something that has good potential. But yeah, we gotta work very hard in the coming days to make sure that we arrive in Melbourne as much prepared as possible.
You've been up the top for the past 2 days. Are they glory runs or are they real runs?
No, as I say, you know, in this testing, you don't even look at the timing, what's going on, you know, because 10 kilos of fuel is 3/10, and you can be at 100 or you can be on 5, so it's a loss of time to try to figure out, but the most important is that our car is performing well.
Ted, I like hearing teams saying they've made a departure, they've taken a risk on their design. How much of a risk do you think it's been?
For Racing Point?
Yeah.
Well, if it's based on last year's Mercedes W10, then not very much, because they know that's a very solid platform. I think what the risk is that it's a big departure from what they had before. But what they had before was just getting them through last year with a change of ownership from Vijay Mallya to Lawrence Stroll, and now they can actually start doing some business. And they all say that it's the car that they wanted to go racing with, and they've been scrapping. And haven't they been punching above their weight in the previous years, you know, to get where they are today? But I tell you, you know, I was surprised when they said yesterday that we're capable of podiums. But they obviously knew the true pace of this car, as we're now seeing. And given, as we said yesterday, that they are podium material, both Lance Stroll and Sergio Perez have both had that experience of being on the podium and knowing what it takes. I wouldn't put it past them at all. But great to hear Sergio talking like that this is the car that they have going into Melbourne.
Yeah, they're not punching above their weight anymore. They've moved up a weight division, I guess, essentially, haven't they?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you know, it's a strange test for Renault, who we expect to be their fight for fourth in the Constructors' Championship with McLaren, because they haven't had the full reliability. They haven't had the laps in. I know, you know, we're talking, Renault did, well, short of 100 laps today. Daniel Ricciardo did 41 laps and Esteban Ocon did 52. So just short, a few short.
Half an hour in the garage for Daniel this afternoon as well.
Yeah, little things
blips
here and there. But while everybody raises the bar in terms of reliability and actually getting their program done and rocketing through their program, when you see someone who isn't doing that like Renault, you start to ask questions. But it's only a little thing. I mean, sure, we'll see, you know, more from them tomorrow and for the second test.
Well, we're going to have a closer look at their car in a moment. Let's just hear from Daniel Ricciardo, though, who's been talking about his running today.
How's it gone today, then?
It was all right. So, I think I got 40 or something laps, so not massive numbers, but enough to, I don't know, I feel like we come here every year and it's always track cold, a cold track and a track we know, so I also don't feel the need to, you know, have locked in 80 laps or something this morning. If we did it, so be it, but I think, yeah, you I don't want to say you only learn so much here this time of the year, but I kind of do feel that way as well, so I feel good enough that with what we've done so far.
Have there been any hiccups at all? Noticed a little bit of damage apparently to the floor this morning, but in terms of run plan, all those kind of things.
Yeah, it's relatively smooth. We got out a little bit late. I think when they fired up, there was just a couple issues, but it wasn't too bad in the end. Then yeah, turn 9, I just washed a little wide and caught the kind of second part of the curb. So I think there was there was a little bit of floor damage after that. So that was me. And then otherwise, yeah, pretty smooth. I think at the end we could have probably squeezed another run in, but then there was a little bit of another issue, but nothing too crazy for now. I think also try to be careful, you know, not make sure that we don't go out there when there may be an issue. So yeah, but it's all good.
How's the balance? How's the feel? And where's it lacking?
Balance. Well, I think first impressions are pretty important. And lap 2 yesterday, we were, you know, not messing about already. So I think the fact I was able to just jump in and go, that was positive. So first impression was good. I think the question is now, once we start to, you know, put the softer tyres on and lean on the car, then that's when we'll, you know, find limitations and stuff. So we'll see. I think we're in a better place than we were, you know, this time last year, but of course we still need to make improvements. But I would say, yeah, similar limitations. You know, I think, you know, watch the fast cars and their front is just able to kind of hook in a lot. I don't want to say a lot nicer, but nicer through, you know, the high speed. You know, that's where they're really strong in the entry of the medium high speeds. And I think that's an area we've worked on a lot. I think we've improved it, but I feel that once we get going, that'll be an area to keep obviously trying to find more from.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, cool.
Cheers, Danny.
Well, I tell you one thing Renault have achieved, Ted, and that's losing the Christmas weight before the rest of us. Because if we look at last year's nose and this year's nose, they've got a lot skinnier.
It's good to see, actually, because, you know, pre-season or pre-test, the team said that the R20, this year's R20, is an evolution of last year's car, the R19. So they said the potential progress is limited. So we were all kind of expecting more or less the same car, the one on the left, and then they come here with the one on the right with its very finely slimmed down nose and upgraded aerodynamics as well. But yeah, it's a nice surprise to see, and that's coming through from the new wind tunnel that they've got in Enstone. But we should remember that with Renault, they've taken one step backwards to take 2 steps forward in the changing their biggest technical team. So out's gone Nick Chester, the previous technical director, and in has come Pat Fry. Pat Fry, who used to be technical director at Ferrari, long time at McLaren, actually started his career at the team that became Renault. That was Benetton, based in Witney in Oxfordshire, way back when, before he went for many years at McLaren. So Pat Fry's just joined. He hasn't had any influence on this car. So the question is how long they stick and give Daniel Ricciardo and Esteban Ocon a car with which they can compete for 4th in the Constructors, and how quickly they transition to concentrating on next year's car with the big regulation change. That will be key for Ricciardo and Ocon going into the season.
When I went to their season opener, and they were very keen to say, listen, we've got the personnel now, we've got the facilities now, we've got everything in place we need. But I almost got a feeling of that means it's a transitional year because it's too soon to see the rewards from that. Do you think that?
You hope not, don't you? Because with Ocon rejoining, you know, he's so hungry. Can you imagine the frustration of being Mercedes development driver, you know, hanging around to see if Valtteri Bottas or Lewis Hamilton couldn't make it, so he might get a run in the car, didn't. A year on the sidelines, he's keen to get in there and show what he can do against Ricciardo. And won't that be mouth-watering prospect to see how good is Ocon against a known quantity, a race winner, you know, like Daniel Ricciardo. So I really, really hope not. Because one thing you can say about Renault and Cyril Abiteboul, is that they know a quick driver when they see one. They're
Definitely.
a quality lineup, isn't it?
And just finally, you mentioned that fourth in the constructors. They said to me that's the aim. They want to get that place back. They were smarting from losing it to McLaren last year, but actually fighting for that fifth was actually their end result and trying not to be sixth. So they dropped back much further than they thought they would be.
Well, and they were chased very hard by last year's Toro Rosso, so AlphaTauri this year. And that car looks good again in the hands of Pierre Gasly and Danny Kvyat. And Toro Rosso, now AlphaTauri, got two things last year that Renault didn't get, and that was a couple of podiums. In Brazil for Gasly
and Germany for Danny Kvyat.
Germany for Danny Kvyat, well remembered. You know, Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri, do we have to call them that?
Yes, AlphaTauri.
Toro Rosso got two podiums and Renault didn't, so
you never do what you're told.
AlphaTauri.
Yes.
I said Toro Rosso got the podiums, and now AlphaTauri are going to run Renault very close to that fourth and fifth and sixth in the constructors, with McLaren and the pink Mercedes Racing Point.
Well, seeing as you so neatly brought AlphaTauri into the conversation, let's have a look at Pierre Gasly on track today. Last year at testing, remember, crashing the Red Bull twice. We saw the looks on the faces of the guys in the garage, but this year there was a spin, cold tyres. It was nothing like last year. And as you say, the car does look good on track.
Yeah, this was really a nothing. This was early on with all of that on. Didn't bring out the red flag. He didn't do any damage to it. And in the end, you know, they had a great run. They did have to change a few things, but that's 147 laps for Pierre Gasly, car number 10 today.
Okay, let's hear from him.
Pierre, hi, welcome back. How was it being back in the car?
I was happy. Yeah, of course, I missed it a lot for the last 2 months, you know, since Abu Dhabi. Not much driving except simulator and some karting, so it feels good to feel the power of the Formula One car, and I really enjoyed that first day back in the
And the two Ferraris do swap places. Charles Leclerc is coming in right now.
Against. Hard tyres on Leclerc's car.
Two-stop strategy for Vettel.
Full safety car will give a cheap pit stop.
There's a lot of gravel there.
This could be a mega restart. Lewis Hamilton is now flying. Sebastian Vettel is now under pressure. Grosjean goes wide. Lewis Hamilton wins the Spanish Grand Prix. Bottas comes home second. Max Verstappen claims a podium.
After such a dominant start to the season with 5 consecutive 1-2s, Mercedes were in fine form and on a massive high. But at the start of Monaco week, they and the rest of the F1 community were left shocked by the devastating news that Niki Lauda had passed away after a period of ill health.
I knew from the beginning that Formula 1 was dangerous. Sooner or later you will have an accident. I was lucky that I had an accident and stayed alive.
The Formula 1 paddock is heartbroken. We've lost Niki Lauda, a unique and inspirational man. The description hero and legend was never more deserved.